Namaste and welcome to the Vedanta Society of Greater Houston and our class on the Upanishads. Om Namo Brahma Dibhyo Brahma Vidya Sampradaya Kartribhyo Vamsharshibhyo Mahadbhyo Namo Gurubhyaha Om Shanti 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 Narayanam Padma Bhuvam Vasishtam Shaktim Cha Tatputra Parasharang Cha Vyasam Sukham Gauda Padam Mohantam Yogindra Govinda Mathasya Shishyam Shri Shankaracharya Mathasya Padma Padam Cha Hastamalakan Cha Shishyam Tantrodakam Vartikakara Manyanasmadgurun Santatamanatosmi Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Our salutation to the lineage of spiritual teachers, beginning with the Lord, the Supreme Lord himself, coming through a long lineage of sages and their disciples, who in turn became teachers and their disciples. Om, peace, peace, peace be unto us all. So we'll continue our study of the Isha Upanishad. Again, it's also called the Ishavasya Upanishad. And according to Sanskrit grammar, if you put the two words together, I'm telling you this just so that if you see it, you won't be confused. You get Ishopanishad or Ishavasyopanishad with an O. So Isha Upanishad, Ishavasya Upanishad, Ishopanishad, and Ishavasyopanishad. So it's all the same text. So we're studying the Ishavasyopanishad, and it is from the Samhita portion, that is the hymn portion, not from the usual place where the Upanishads come, after the Aranyakas, or forest books. But this one comes in the Samhita itself, of the Shukla Yajurveda. But it comes from what is considered a later portion of the Samhita. So it's not from the early part of the Samhitas, but a late part of the Samhita. So it's a very old Upanishad, but probably not as old as the Chandogya or Brihadaranyaka Upanishads. So we had come through verse 8 in the last three classes. The first class was just an introduction. The second and third classes brought us up to and through verse 8. And according to Shankaracharya, as I said in previous classes, this Upanishad has two distinct messages. One message for those who are ready to renounce or who have renounced the world and become sannyasins, have become monks, renouncing the world completely. And the other message is for those living in the world. And so he says, the first verse is for monks, the second verse is for householders, the third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, I think, and eighth are for, I believe, I won't go back through and check to be sure, but I think those are for sannyasins. And now starting with verse 9, he says again that the rest of the Upanishad is for householders, people who are not ready to renounce the world. So as I've already explained in earlier classes, though Shankara was the towering figure in Vedanta philosophy, in the tradition of Vedanta, one who is so great in his commentaries on the Brahma Sutra, the Upanishads, the Bhagavad Gita, and in his general writing on philosophy, that every subsequent school of Vedanta had to contend with him, even if they rejected completely his philosophy. But he was such a gigantic figure that everyone had to contend with him. So even a school like the school of Bengal Vaishnavism, Gaudiya Vaishnavism, represented most famously nowadays by Krishna consciousness, they completely reject Shankara and his philosophy, but they had to contend with him. They had to justify their philosophy against his philosophy in order to get their philosophy accepted. And so he was a towering figure. However, as I explained in earlier classes, I think that he is wrong, and many others also feel this. Not a majority of Vedantins, but many modern Vedantins, including people like the translator Swami Sarvanandaji, one of our great monks of the past, Swami Ranganathanandaji, and others have disagreed with Shankara's interpretation of this Upanishad, that some verses are for monks, some are for householders. Because the Upanishad seems to be giving a harmonious message, bringing these two trends together. That trend which supported work in the world and participating in Vedic ritual and civic life and so forth, and the other which supported giving up everything for the sake of renunciation. And so according to this view, this text is an early version of what Sri Krishna later did in the Bhagavad Gita. And then it has been a tendency coming down to present times in the Hindu tradition. These two opposed extremes, and then the effort to bring them together and show that they're not really opposed to each other. So again, my view is that it is such a harmonious text. So first, I will read verse 9, 10, and 11 go together. And so I'll first explain these verses according to Shankara's understanding. And then I'll come back and refute that and give the understanding which Swami Sarvanandaji has given. And the views of people like Swami Ranganathanandaji, Lokeshwaranandaji, and others are very similar. So, verse 9 says, Antantama pravishanti ye vidyam upasate tato bhuya ivate tamoya uvidyaya agam rataha. This verse and the subsequent two verses, in fact, this verse, beginning with this verse, the 6 verses we will now go over, continue that tendency in the Isha Upanishad of presenting paradox. And I've talked a lot about that in the earlier classes on the Isha Upanishad, so I won't belabor the point now, but it continues that speaking in paradox. So, Antam tamah pravishanti ye avidyam upasate. So those, upasate, those who worship avidyam, those who worship ignorance, andham tamah pravishanti, enter into blinding darkness. So those who worship ignorance, they enter into blinding darkness. Tato bhuya ivate tamo ya uvidyayagam rataha. But into even greater darkness, as it were, but into even greater darkness, as it were, enter those who delight in knowledge. So it's saying, into blinding darkness enter those who worship ignorance, and those who worship knowledge, as it were, enter into even greater darkness than that. So now Shankaracharya was always intent on showing that works and knowledge cannot coexist. And there was a historical reason why he did that, why it was important for him to establish that point. But in cases like this, he seems to have overdone it. And so he interprets ignorance as just following the rituals, just going through the motions of rituals, doing the rituals that prescribed by the Vedas, because this was written in Vedic times. And then he says that knowledge represents just learning about the meditations and so forth. And so they enter into blinding darkness who just go about doing the rituals without understanding them. But into even greater darkness, those enter who are satisfied just with understanding the rituals and practicing meditation on their basis. That is, who don't perform the rituals, but who just meditate on the inner significance. And so again, I'm going to come back and refute to that understanding because it's, to me and to many others, it's quite unsatisfactory. It twists the more obvious meaning. Though I should say that there is no obvious meaning because again, it's dealing with a paradox. It's speaking in paradoxical language, so there's not an obvious meaning. But it certainly is a difficult thing to get his meaning out of that text, and he ignores the word eva, which means as if. And again, I'll come back to that so it will make sense in a moment. Let me get to verse 10 and then 11, and then we'll come back. So verse 10 says, Anyadevahur vidyaya nyadahur vidyaya iti shushrumadhira nam ye nastad vichachakshire. So anyad eva ahur vidyaya. Through knowledge, one result is obtained. Anyad ahur vidyaya, and a different result is obtained through ignorance. So knowledge gives us one result, ignorance gives us another result. Iti shushrumadhiranam. Thus we have heard from the wise ones, ye nastad vichachakshire, those who have explained it to us. So one result you get from ignorance, another quite different result you get from knowledge. Thus we have heard from the wise who explained it to us. That's the simple meaning, and that is the literal meaning of what this says. There's no question about that. And there's no question about the literal meaning of the previous verse. It's just what that literal meaning refers to is the question, what he means by knowledge and ignorance. So again, Shankaracharya says that ignorance means just going through the rituals. Knowledge means doing the meditations, but without bothering to do the rituals. And so here it says, one result is obtained by vidya, that is knowledge of ritualistic philosophy. And that is said to be, and this is again where his explanation falls apart. It doesn't really quite make sense. He tries to make it sensible, but it's not satisfactory to me or to many others. The result of vidya, that is, there are meditations in the Vedas and Upanishads which are called vidyas, knowledges. And so it's a legitimate interpretation to say that by vidya they may mean these meditations. But he's saying before that one enters into even greater darkness by these meditations. But here he says that the result of the meditations is to attain to Deva Loka, the world of the gods. And the result of just doing the rituals is to go to the Pitri Loka, that is the realm of the ancestors. So if you do the Vedic rituals and everything, you're not doing it from a spiritual standpoint, but you're just doing it because you're supposed to do it, and you do it as a ritual, just something that you're supposed to do. Then through the merit of doing the rituals, you're reborn in what is called Pitri Loka, Chandra Loka, both of which refer to the same realm, which is the realm of the ancestors, where you go and live with the ancestors in a heaven like all religions have spoken of, all religions believe in, whether it's the Norse or the Germanic people, the Greeks, the Romans, the Native Americans, the Christians, the Jews, Muslims, anyone who has an idea of a heaven. One idea of the heaven, or the most popular idea of the heaven, is a place where you go and you're reunited with your loved ones. The Mormons also, that's very big in the Mormon church, though their heaven is quite a physical place, not a subtle realm, but a physical place. And so through these rituals, the result of that is to go to the realm of the ancestors. And the result of the meditations is to go to the realm of the gods, which is a far superior heaven. It's not spiritual, but it's much more subtle, much more refined enjoyment, much more refined knowledge and understanding. So the previous verse said that you enter into blinding darkness by just doing the rituals, and even greater is the darkness you enter into when you just do the meditations. But then the next verse, He's saying that through the rituals you go to Pitri Loka, and through the meditations you go to Deva Loka, which is a superior world. So it makes there's no consistency there. And then verse 11 says, Vidyang cha yastad vedo bhayagna saha avidyaya mrityun tirtva vidyaya mritam. So vidyam cha avidyam cha yastad veda ubhayam saha, one who knows both ignorance and knowledge, one who knows both of them. Avidyaya mrityun tirtva, having crossed over death through ignorance, vidyaya mritam, enjoys immortality through knowledge. And so here again, Shankaracharya says that through the avidya, that is through just performing the rituals, you cross over death. That means you are reborn in Chandraloka, in the realm of the ancestors. And through the performance of the meditations, you attain to immortality. And he says that is relative immortality. It means that you go for a long time. It's not immortality at all. You go for a long time to the realm of the gods. But then you have to come back here, because that's not liberation. That's just a reward for having practiced these meditations devoutly. So that's his explanation of these three verses. Various other people have given other explanations. For instance, I saw today in Prabhupada, Bhaktivedanta Swami, the founder of Krishna consciousness, in his book on the Isha Upanishad, he says, he interprets, as often in Bengal Vaishnavism, he interprets things in a very literal sense. And so he says that ignorance is obviously darkness, and so you enter into darkness by following ignorance, meaning just ordinary ignorance. But knowing a little bit is even more dangerous, and so you enter into greater darkness when you think you know something, and you have a little knowledge, and you're much more dangerous than when you don't have any knowledge. And so that's a possible interpretation. It doesn't. It's hard to square that with the other two verses. As far as verse 9 goes, yes, that would make sense. But it doesn't square with verses 10 and 11, where when it squares with verse 10, that the results of the two are different. The results of ignorance are one thing. The result of a faulty education is something else. But then how does ignorance help you cross over death, and knowledge helps you attain to immortality? So then he jumps to a different interpretation of ignorance and knowledge to make it fit. But let me come to, and there are even other interpretations, but let me come to the interpretation that Swami Sarvanandaji gives, and which I think is the best. In fact, in this text, Swami Sarvanandaji gives three different interpretations, one of which I gave, which is Shankaracharya's, and one which I'm going to give, which is his final conclusion, but then he gives another interpretation as well, which I won't go into, but there's no sense in belaboring the point that the language is paradoxical, difficult, and obviously symbolic. So he says that, let me come to his interpretation so that I can get it right. For verse 9, which again says literally, they enter into blinding darkness who worship ignorance, but into even greater darkness, as it were, enter those who worship knowledge. So he says, and this is an interpretation. What I just gave is an exact literal translation. This is interpretation. Those who are engrossed in ignorance or the perception of many. So they enter into blinding darkness who worship ignorance. So here ignorance, he says, is spiritual ignorance, where we worship the many. We worship the objects of this world. We worship the objects of desire, etc. Those who are engrossed in ignorance or the perception of the many enter into blinding darkness, into darkness that seems to be even greater than that, enter they who are absorbed in knowledge or mystical consciousness of the One. So here the significance is, in the verse, there's the word Eva. So they enter into even greater darkness, as it were, who worship knowledge. And so Eva, as it were, a word that's very important in Sanskrit philosophy. You come across it all the time in Vedantic texts. Eva means as it were. So it means that it's not actually what you're saying. It seems that way, but that's not what it is. And so Shankaracharya's interpretation just ignores the word Eva because it doesn't fit in his explanation. It would break his explanation. But here, the full meaning of the word Eva, a very important term, though it's just a short two-syllable, three-letter word, is that it seems that they enter into greater darkness who worship knowledge, that is, knowledge of the Absolute, because their mind is not turned towards the world, just as Sri Ramakrishna, during his period of sadhana, from the time he became a priest at the Kali temple in Dakshineshwar as a very young man, through his period of spiritual practice for 12 years. People thought he was a madman because he wasn't interested in the world, wasn't interested in the things other people were interested in. His mind was so focused on God that they thought he must be crazy because he didn't like the things everybody else likes. And so it's as if a person who worships the One, worships the Absolute, who worships Brahman, it's as if they enter into even greater darkness, but it's only as if. And so then it says in the verse 10 that one result is attained by ignorance, another result is attained by knowledge. Thus we have heard from the wise sages who explained it to us. So ignorance, of course, leads to bondage. Knowledge leads to illumination. And then the third verse in this series, verse 11, says that, but those who know both knowledge and ignorance together, through ignorance they cross over death, and through knowledge they attain to immortality. So that he explains as, but he who understands the secret of the many, that is ignorance, because ignorance is concerned with the many. So he who understands the secret of the many and has also absorption in the One simultaneously, attains spiritual felicity of transcendence by absorption in the One, knowledge, having overcome the weakness and delusions of mortal life by knowing how the many are becomings of the One. So one who sees the world of ignorance, that is all of this, but sees it as having come from Brahman, who has done what the first verse of this Upanishad said, Isha vasyam idam sarvam yat kinja jagatyam jagat. Whatever exists in this universe, whatever moves within this moving universe, dynamic universe, cover it over with God. And through that renunciation, support yourself or enjoy. So again, cover over everything with God. So one who sees the world of the many, but sees it as coming from the One, because again, the verse 11 says, one who knows both, ignorance and knowledge, knows the world of ignorance and has knowledge of the Absolute. They cross over death by attaining to by knowing the Absolute, and they attain felicity by seeing God everywhere in the universe. So, having overcome the weakness and delusions of mortal life by knowing how the many are the becomings of the One, that is through avidya. So that's a meaning, which yes, is not, that's a ways from just the literal translation of the words. But when the literal translations of the words are presenting a stark paradox which makes no sense, then you have to find what is the inner meaning. And of course, the sage who wrote this Upanishad, or he didn't write it. In those days, they didn't write down such things. The one who conceived the Upanishads and taught it orally to his disciples would, of course, have passed on the meaning of that, of the text. But there are thousands of years between when this was written and when Shankaracharya wrote his commentary on the Upanishads. And so during those thousands of years, the meaning given orally by the teacher, that was lost. And so Shankaracharya came up with a meaning consistent with his philosophy, but one which I think does not do justice to the whole text. Whereas this, again, which is certainly an interpretation, because you're not going to get any meaning without an interpretation, this gives some meaning, and it gives a consistent meaning for the three verses, 9, 10, and 11. Let me mention that I think it was Swami Siddheshwarananda, this great Swami of the order, who founded the center in France, in Gretz. I believe he was the one. It might have been someone, another Swami, but because he was in France and because he studied the Spanish mystics, Saint Teresa of Avila, and more especially Saint John of the Cross, and wrote a book about Saint John of the Cross's mysticism, or actually a book was made out of his lectures on the Carmelite mystics. I think it was he who said that this can also be interpreted from the standpoint of Saint John of the Cross, that one who worships ignorance enters into darkness, as we explained, or into blinding darkness, as we explained. But one who worships knowledge enters into even greater darkness. That's talking about the dark night of the spirit, where one enters. There's the first dark night of St. John, which is the dark night of the sense, where you turn your mind away from the world of the senses. And that's a period of difficulty, because you're seeking something that you haven't found yet, and you're giving up what you already know and what you could have and enjoy. So you're giving this up to seek for something that you don't even know what it is. And so that's the dark night of sense, which is a difficult period in the spiritual life. But then one enters into a deeper night, the dark night of the spirit, in which one has given up all images of the mind, all the thoughts of the mind, and just sits in the presence of silence, where one will find God. And there one enters into even greater darkness until the heart is illuminated by the divine. So that's also a beautiful interpretation. Of course, it's assuming that the author of this text knew about the dark night of the sense and dark night of the spirit. And of course, one does experience those things on the spiritual path. It's just that in Indian spirituality, they didn't take note of those two things. That's one of the things that makes a difference between the mysticisms of different schools within India and between Indian schools and other mystical schools, is that the path is a long path, and there are different signs along the way, there are different developments along the way, and so different schools make a point of different things. And so the experience of the dark night of sense and dark night of the spirit, that is something that everyone experiences, but in the Indian tradition, they didn't make a point of that so much. Whereas in the Christian tradition, St. John of the Cross was the first to make a point of it, and since that time, it became a point that was often made by subsequent mystics as well. So, but it's much easier to take the interpretation that I gave here from Swami Sarvananda, that he who understands the secret of the many, that is, the secret of ignorance, and has also absorption in the one, that is, knowledge, simultaneously, attains to the spiritual felicity of transcendence by absorption in Brahman, having knowledge, having overcome the weakness and delusions of mortal life, by knowing how the many are becomings of the one, knowing how ignorance is a becoming of knowledge, that is, this realm of ignorance. And then ignorance itself is conquered because one has the knowledge that everything is Brahman. Even when the vision of the world comes back, one sees everything as Brahman. So that's a much more satisfying interpretation to me. So let me just read those 3 verses as given in this interpretation, this final interpretation, one more time, just to uh, make us more familiar with it, since I gave 3 different interpretations, or actually 4 different interpretations, including the Bengal Vaishnava and the St. John of the Cross interpretation. Those who are engrossed in ignorance, avidya, or the perception of the many, enter into blinding darkness, into darkness that seems, only seems, to be even greater than that, enter they who are absorbed in knowledge or mystic consciousness of the One. Thus, one result, they say, is obtained by engrossment in the many, ignorance, and quite another by absorption in the One, knowledge. Thus, we have heard from the wise who explained it to us. But he who understands the secret of the many, ignorance, and has also absorption in the One simultaneously, knowledge, attains the spiritual felicity of transcendence by absorption in the One, that is, absorption in knowledge, having overcome the weakness and delusions of mortal life by knowing how the many are the becomings of the One. So now we come to another set of 3 verses where a similar paradox is presented in similar language. And so verse 12 says, Antam tamah pravishanti ye sambhuti mupasate tato bhuya ivate tamo yau sambhutyagam rataha. So antam tamah pravishanti ye, they enter into blinding darkness, who asambhutim upasate, who worship the unmanifest. And again, I'll give first Shankaracharya's interpretation, and then I'll give his. I won't go into so many alternative interpretations on this, but I'll give Shankaracharya's and then his. Tato bhuya ivate tamo, and into even greater darkness, as it were, they enter who sambhutyam rataho, who delight in the manifest. So they who enter into the unmanifest, they who worship the unmanifest enter into blinding darkness, and into even greater darkness, as it were, into those who worship the manifest. So now Shankaracharya, he interprets the unmanifest here as Prakriti. And one of the names of Prakriti is Avyakrita, the unmanifested. Not Asambhuti, but it means basically the same, that which is unmanifested. So he says, those who worship Prakriti, that is the root of nature, those who worship that enter into blinding darkness. But into even greater darkness enter they who worship the personal God. So here that's explained by the fact that worship of Prakriti means engrossment in Prakriti, not through ignorance, but through yogic processes. In the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali, he speaks about the Prakriti Linas, those who are absorbed in Prakriti. They've practiced concentration so much that they've perfected concentration. They concentrate on the root of nature, Prakriti, not consciousness, not God, not the self, but on Prakriti, nature. And here in yoga, there's no idea of the Divine Mother. It's just dull, dead, and sentient nature. But on the root of it, then they become Prakriti Lina. And at the end of a cycle, they merge into Prakriti. And at the end of a cycle, they're reborn as a God, not Ishvara, not the Supreme Lord or the Divine Mother, but one of the minor deities, which are stations that different jivas like us can attain to through great virtue. So one who is engrossed in Prakriti, merges into Prakriti, at the end of the cycle of creation, they are reborn as a minor deity. And then at the end of that next cycle, they attain to liberation. But those who worship the personal God without knowing that the personal God is connected to the absolute Brahman, those who worship the personal God without any idea that the personal God is a manifestation of Brahman, that is, those who worship the personal God in a purely dualistic way, without any reference to the background of the personal deity, they, as it were, enter into even greater darkness. And so then it goes with the same verse as before, 13, the same as verse 10. Anyadevahu sambhavat anyadahurasam bhavat iti shushrumadhira namye nastadvichachakshire. So one result is attained through worship of the unmanifested. Quite a different result is attained by worship of the unmanifested or the manifested. The one result of the unmanifested, another quite a different result through worship of the manifested. Thus we have heard from the wise who explained it to us. And so Shankara says that the result of worshiping Sambhuti, or I'm sorry, I misinterpreted the Sambhuti. Shankaracharya says that Sambhuti, not the personal God, that comes in the next verse, but Sambhuti means Hiranyagarbha, Brahma, the creator, who's a minor deity. So one who worships Prakriti, nature, merges into nature, spends the rest of the cycle in a state of samadhi, but samadhi on nature. And then at the next cycle, they're born as a deity. But one who worships Hiranyagarbha, the manifested, attains to the eightfold yogic powers. So worship of Hiranyagarbha without realizing that he's a secondary deity, one can attain the 8 psychic powers. So then we come to the third verse in this set of 3, verse 14. Sambhuting cha vinashang cha yastadvedo bhayaggasaha vinashena mrityun tirtva sambhutyamritamashnuте. So one who knows both the manifested and also the destructible. Here it changes from the manifested and the unmanifested. Knows both the manifested and the destructible together. Through the destructible, the temporary, the transient, crosses over death, and through the manifested attains to immortality. So the translation given here according to Shankara's commentary is one who understands asambhuti and vinasha. So Shankara says that here sambhuti actually means asambhuti, because otherwise you can't get the sense that he wants out of this without putting in front of sambhuti. So one who understands asambhuti, the unmanifested, and vinasha, the destruction, both together, attains immortality by devotion to asambhuti, that is, through devotion to Prakriti, having conquered death by the worship of vinasha, the destructible, or Hiranyagarbha, Brahma, the creator, who is a living being like us who attain to a high state, but that state won't last. It'll last for billions of years for a creation, and then when the universe withdraws back into its seed state, then Brahma attains liberation, and another Brahma comes for the next cycle. And so I realize that this is all very complicated, and it takes you into depths of Hindu theology as well as philosophy. So I apologize for that. But for some of you, this is understandable. For some others, it's unnecessary detail, which doesn't have much practical significance for you. But now let me come back to his interpretation of this, which does have significance, just as his interpretation of the previous 3 verses has spiritual significance for us. And so, again, coming to his interpretation here, he says, those who are engrossed with the worship of the born, sambhuti, sambhuti means born or caused, or a personal God who is not recognized as an expression of the absolute, asambhuti and vinasha of verse 14, they enter into blinding darkness. That is, one who worships the personal God without recognizing really what the personal God is. That is, just worshiping the personal God through ignorance. They enter into blinding darkness. Into darkness that seems, again, Eva, seems even greater than that. Enter they who are absorbed in the absolute. For in the former there is expression of life, while in the latter it looks like inertness and negation of life. So one who worships the personal God without really understanding the personal God, they enter into blinding darkness. But into even greater darkness enter they who worship that which is beyond manifestation, that which is the absolute. Because by worshiping the absolute, again, we are forgetting this universe and entering into a state where this universe disappears. So to people of this universe, people attached to this universe, that looks like even greater darkness. And that's why in the Indian tradition, the Hindu tradition, I should say, the Advaita philosophy has long been criticized as being life-negating and a very negative philosophy, a very pessimistic philosophy, and contrary to the Vedas and so forth, because it is a philosophy which says that all of this that we see and all of this that we want is not worth wanting. What we should learn to want is that which is beyond all of this. Now, let me argue against the idea that that is pessimistic. I've seen the written arguments of Western religionists and scholars who argue that Hinduism is based, and especially non-dualistic Advaita Vedanta, is pessimistic. And they go to explain what they mean by that. And then they say, and I've actually read, I'm not speaking from an exact quotation, but it's a close paraphrase. The argument that's often given is that, yes, of course, this life is difficult, but we in the West, we say, and we in the Christian tradition, we say that we'll face it boldly and make the best of it. So yes, it's difficult, and yes, it's short, and yes, there are all kinds of difficulties and sufferings and disease and death, but we say face it like a man. That is optimism. That is what you call, if that is optimism, then you'd have a hard time explaining pessimism. So the Advaita says that yes, you can have this world as long as you want it. As long as you want it, enjoy it. Have fun. Kick up your heels. Have a good time. And we won't pour cold water on your parade. We want you don't. We're not trying to convince you of the truth of Advaita, but we're saying that a time will come when you find that no, this isn't enough. I want something deeper. I want something that lasts. I want to know the truth. Now I begin to see everything here is like a shadow. It's always receding from me. I can't grasp. I try to grasp things and they're always out of my grasp. So when you begin to experience that, then we, Vedanta, not me, we, the Vedanta tradition, will tell you about the reality, which is bliss itself, which is immortality itself, where there is no death. And this universe itself is an expression of that very reality. You don't have to leave this world, just change your perception of it. And you'll see, as Sri Ramakrishna said, that this whole world becomes a mart of joy. That this very world, which was a world of tears, it becomes a mart of joy when we see it, as this Upanishad says, by covering everything with God, or saying the same thing but with a completely different, the opposite metaphor, removing the covering and seeing God in everything. And so that, to me, is real optimism. And it's optimism based on the experience of countless sages, men and women, down through the ages, that it is possible to do that. So let us not think that optimism means that just enjoying this world and thinking that this world is everything. No, a time will come when you'll find that that was a poison philosophy. It was something that led you to death. A time for all of us will come. And we can take our time. You don't have to be in a hurry. Now, if you want to take up spiritual life, people like Sri Ramakrishna will tell you that to be up and doing. Follow the ideas, practice, so that you get there. Don't just think that, well, someday it'll happen, I'll be there. No. But if you're not ready for it, then yes, take your time. Enjoy this world as much as you can, because a time will come when you've had enough. And then you will want real optimism, not just a promise of a heavenly life that may come or may not come, but the promise of knowing in this very life the truth. So now there are 4 verses left, and I think I will go ahead and take them. There's a choice of stopping here and taking the 4 verses later, but actually the 4 verses, they are the prayer of a person who is on his deathbed, and so they all fit together. And so let me just go ahead and complete our study of this Upanishad, not forever, but for this reading. On your own, you should go back and study the Upanishad over and over. So verse 15, these are very beautiful verses about a soul who is dying and his prayer. Hiranmayena patrena satyasyapi hitam mukham tattvam pushannapavranu satyadharmaya drishtaye. So, Hiranmayena patrena satyasya apihitam mukham. The face of truth is covered by a golden disc. Hiranmayena patrena, with a golden disc. Satyasya mukham, the face of truth. Apihitam is covered. So the face of truth is covered by a golden disc. This man on his deathbed is saying that, and he's saying it in reference to the sun. The sun is a golden disc. Remember that in Vedic times and through Hinduism, but much more popular in ancient times than it is today, the sun was a deity, as it was in cultures all around the world. Everywhere the sun was recognized as a deity. And so in Vedic times and later also, the sun was a symbol of the divine reality, the luminous reality which produces this universe. And so he's saying that the face of the sun, the face of the truth, represented by the sun, is covered by a golden disc. Tattvam pushan apavrinu. O Pushan, O Nourisher, one of the many names of the sun. O Nourisher, remove that disc. Remove that golden disc. Satya Dharmaya Drishtaye. Pavrinu Satya Dharmaya Drishtaye. So that I who am devoted to the truth, Satya Dharma, I who am devoted to the truth, Drishtaye, so that I may see. O sun, your face is covered, as it were, by a golden disc. I am a devotee of truth. Please remove that covering over your face so that I can see the truth. That is, he's come to realize that the sun is a symbol of the reality, a beautiful symbol of the reality. So he's not saying that that's a symbol and the reality somewhere else. No, the reality is here just as it's everywhere. The sun is the reality also. But the sun, as a symbol of the reality, is a very powerful symbol of the reality. Its face is covered with a golden disc. What does that mean? That means that everything here is covered with a golden disc. We see the world with a golden disc covering it. Everything looks so shiny. Everything looks so beautiful. Everything looks so attractive. I want it. I want it. I want to grab it. I want to taste it. And so he's at the point of death where he's realized that, yes, the golden covering of things, that's an illusion. So please, O sun, O nourisher, remove that golden disc so that I, who am devoted to the truth, can behold that, the face of truth. Pushanne karshi. Oh, there's something wrong with the markings here. Pushanne karshe yamasurya prajapatya vyuharashmin samohatejo yatte rupam kalyanatamante pashyami. So Pushan, O nourisher, O sun, O nourisher, Ekarshe, O solitary mover, one who moves by himself through the heavens. Again, all of this is deeply symbolic because, again, remember, the sun is regarded as the reality, and it's a deity, and it's one and alone, and yet it seems to move through the sky. Solitary mover, Yama, controller, that which controls and directs everything here on life. Think of it, all of the rhythms of life are governed by the sun. All of the, you may say, well, the moon too. Yes, but the moon because of the sun. The sun is primary. The moon reflects the light of the sun. So the sun is the controller of everything here, and it's the giver of life. The energy which we are now using in our bodies is energy which has come directly from the sun, through plants absorbing it, and we absorbing the energy from plants and from animals who have eaten the plants. So, O nourisher, solitary courser, controller, Surya, O sun, Prajapatya, O child of the creator. Because in the mythology, again, the sun was the child of Prajapati, the creator. Vyuha Rashmin, remove your rays. Again, he's asking him to uncover his face. Remove your rays. Samuha tejo, withdraw your brilliance. Yatte rupam kalyanatamam tatte pashyami. So that your form, your real form, which is the grantor of all good, that I may see it. Tatte pashyami, so that I can see your real blessed form. So withdraw your rays, remove your glory, so that I can see your real form. That is the naked face of truth, so that I can see the naked face of truth. Yosa vaso purusha sohamasmi. A beautiful line. So that that which you are, that I am. I am that. I am that which you are. So the running translation, O son, offspring of Prajapati, thou lonely courser through heaven, thou controller and supporter of all, contract your rays, withdraw your light, your glory. Through thy grace I behold the most blessed form of thine. I am indeed he, that being who dwells there within you. I am that being. Again, this experience of non-duality. That which you are, I am that. I am the same reality as you are. So show me the face of truth, that I may know that you and I are the same reality, that I am one with you, the face of truth. And then, Vayuranilam amritam athedam bhasmantagga shariram Om krato smara kritagga smara krato smara kritagga smara. This says, now let my breath, my prana, let my breath, my vayu, my prana, be merged in the all-pervading immortal prana, the energy, the one energy of this universe. May the energy within me be merged into the energy of the universe. And may this body be reduced to ashes, because even at that time they practiced cremation. Om, O mind, remember past deeds, remember. O mind, remember past deeds, remember. That is, let me remember the good deeds that I have done, so that they carry me forward. Let me not dwell on anything negative. Let me dwell only on the positive. So that, in the last verse, verse 18, Agne naya supatha raye asman vishwani deva vayunani vishwan Vidwan yuyodhyasmadjuhurana me no bhuishtante nama uktim videma. So this last verse says, O Agni, O fire. Again, he's on the burning, he's ready to be burnt on the burning pyre. And so he's praying to the fire, which is going to be set when the life departs. Once the life departs, they'll set fire to the burning pyre. And so he's praying to fire, who was regarded as a deity and still is regarded as a deity. That's why we don't blow out a candle or anything like that. We put it out without blowing on it, because that would be like blowing in the face of the deity. And so fire was the mouth of all of the gods. Whatever you offered into Agni, into fire, Agni would take it to whatever god it was intended for, whether it was for Agni himself or for some other deity. So here he's praying to Agni, the god of fire. O Agni, lead us, meaning me, but using the plural as is often done in ancient cultures. Lead us by the fair path, that is the path of the gods. Lead us by the fair path, not the path of the ancestors, which is not bad, but that just leads to a nice, happy family reunion for a long time, and then you have to come back here where you were before. So lead us by the fair path that we may reap the good that we have sown. So again, he told his mind, remember my good deeds, remember my good deeds, so that I can reap the good deeds I have sown. You know all of our deeds, O fire. Lord, destroy all crooked going sins within us. We salute you with our words again and again. So thus ends the Upanishads, or the Upanishad, the Isha Upanishad. So again, that was the prayer of a departing soul at the time of departing, and one who had understood that he was one with reality itself, who had progressed far on the spiritual path, but obviously not one who was yet a Jivan Mukta, one who was living in the consciousness of, who had realized fully in experience, in identity with Brahman. But he knew that that was his real nature, and so he prays to the sun, "O sun, remove your rays, withdraw your brilliance, so that I can see the face of truth. I no longer want to be fooled by the appearance of things. I want to know the truth." And then he says that which is within you, that I am. I am the same reality as you. I want to know that. So again, it's a beautiful prayer of a departing soul. So we'll stop here. Let me give announcements, and then we will. I'll take a question or two if there are any. So for announcements, on Thursday we will have the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna class at the usual time, 11 o'clock in the morning. On Sunday, I will speak on Sri Rama, the embodiment of Dharma, because Ram Navami, the birth anniversary, the traditional birth anniversary of Sri Ram, comes this Wednesday. That is tomorrow. And so on Sunday, I will speak about Sri Ram. And then next week, we will continue the Upanishad class. Next Tuesday, we will take up the Kena Upanishad, Kena, Kena Upanishad. So I'll see if there's a question. Yes, Sur. Now, what was the first thing?
Every time we have studied so far, knowledge means we thought knowledge about the self. But here it talks about worship or meditation through meditation of knowledge. So why Shankaracharya is making two different things here?
Well, knowledge can mean different things. We can knowledge of physics, knowledge of chemistry, knowledge of how to do rituals, and so many things. And so vidya is a neutral term just meaning knowledge, and you can apply it in any way. In fact, in the Upanishads, it says there is apara vidya, lower knowledge, and there's higher knowledge, para vidya. And in the Upanishads themselves, these meditations are called vidyas. And so as far as that goes, it's a legitimate use of the term vidya. The problem is that when you read all three verses, it doesn't fit. And so Shankaracharya put that meaning because he was always trying to show that work and knowledge, rituals and knowledge cannot go together. But the Gita says, and what I think this Upanishad is saying, and what Sri Ramakrishna and Swami Vivekananda have said, so it's got a long tradition in the Hindu tradition as well, that those actions which have knowledge as their aim, those are not contrary to knowledge. It's how you do action. It's not action itself which is contrary to knowledge. Yes, Shankaracharya's point is true, that in the state of knowledge, when you, like Sri Ramakrishna, when he was in Nirvikalpa Samadhi, where's their action? He's not even breathing. He's not even blinking his eyes, so there's no action. But outside of that, Sri Ramakrishna did many things. Shankaracharya himself traveled all over India. He argued with so many philosophers. He wrote hymns. He wrote commentaries. He established monasteries. Who was more active than Shankaracharya? And so to make this absolute distinction between work and knowledge, there was a historical necessity for distinguishing the two, but it went too far. That's my opinion, and the opinion of some others also. And so that's why he did it, because he was always trying to emphasize that point that work and knowledge can't go together. And work includes even things like the meditations called vidyas, because you have to do them. Okay, so where does heaven, hell fit in the concept of samsara? In the birth and rebirth cycles, are heaven and hell intermediate stages? Where does the soul go after leaving a body? Yes. So first of all, you don't need to believe in heavens and hells if nobody, I should say, not you, but nobody needs to believe in heaven and hells if they don't want to, if it seems irrational. But the Hindu idea, including the Vedantic idea, as in all religions, is that this is not the only world. This is one world of a number of worlds. And the non-dualistic idea is that all of those worlds are right here. It depends on the state of your mind which world you will see. When you dream, you haven't gone anywhere. You're right where you were when you were seeing this world. But you fall asleep, this world disappears, and another world, the dream world, appears. In the same way, this world at death disappears, and another world may appear. A world that is more pleasant, more perfect, more beautiful than this world, more happy, or a world that is darker, more suffering, more painful than this world. The latter is called a hell, and the former, the more pleasant, more beautiful, is called a heaven. They're just worlds where you have a body appropriate to that world, and you have experiences appropriate to that world. So, a person dying, some people are quickly reborn here. That depends on one's karma. And there are many factors that influence that. So it's not that you can't give a simple answer that this person's going to return quickly and that person's going to heaven and that person's going to hell. No, there are many factors involved. But some people, when they die, they quickly are reborn here. Not instantly. For everybody, there's a transition between death and rebirth. But some people relatively quickly. They are reborn. Other people, many other people, they go to a superior world or to an inferior world, a world of greater pleasure or a world of greater pain. And that is determined by one's karma also. But in the Vedantic view, all forms of Vedanta, heavenly worlds and hellish worlds are temporary. You go there for a period because of your past karma, but after that karma which sent you to these worlds is exhausted, you are reborn again here. And so the goal of Vedanta is not to be reborn in a heavenly world. The goal of Vedanta is to realize that which is outside of the whole process of samsara. So samsara, relative existence, is made up of all of these different worlds. Hells, this world, heavenly worlds of different types, like the world of the ancestors where you go and you have a long and very happy family reunion, or the world of the gods where you go and you spend time in a god body and enjoying very highly refined enjoyments, or worlds that are higher than that, up to Brahmaloka, which is a highly spiritual world from which you don't have to come back here. If you make it to Brahmaloka, the highest heavenly world, then you live there for a long time, for an age. And then at the end of the cycle of creation, when the universe withdraws back into itself, Brahma, the Lord of that world, the creator, he attains to liberation, and all of those living there attain to full liberation also, and there's no return. So is this the same thing as the letter of the law leads to death of the soul? The Spirit of God alone can give life to the soul. Yes, from 2 Corinthians, yes. So yes, it is the same thing as the letter of the law leads to death. And so those who are just who are just devoted to the letter of the law, as you find in every religion, including Hinduism, Islam, Christianity, Judaism, Buddhism, all religions have those who are fanatics on the letter of the law, the literal meaning of things. So yes, that is entering into darkness. And greater darkness, as it were, those who enter into the spirit of the truth, because they go beyond the perception of ordinary people. So it's not really greater darkness, it's only greater darkness from the standpoint of ignorant people. So greater darkness, as it were. Okay, so thank you for your questions, and I'll give a closing chant, and we'll see you next time. Oh, one other thing I wanted to mention, just for the record, that is this past Sunday, we lost our internet, and AT&T didn't come to save us until the early afternoon on Sunday, and so we had no way to give our live stream a lecture. So this past Sunday, there was no lecture. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Tat Sat. That infinite reality is full, perfect, and complete. This relative universe is full, perfect, and complete. From out of the fullness of that infinite being, the fullness of this world has come, and yet that being remains ever the same. Om, peace, peace, peace be unto us and to all the beings of the universe.